Hi everyone, welcome to another episode on Learn All Things Cyber with T. As we have wrapped up the topic on cryptography, I'll be moving into a topic called incident response. I'll be looking into what incidents actually means as opposed to events in cybersecurity. We'll be looking into what is incident response stages, what is even incident itself, and then incident response, how does it look like in cybersecurity? And then what are the stages that we go through when we are responding to an incident? I'll be picking just 2 out of the stages for this week. And then for next week or couple of weeks, we'll dive into the remaining part of it. So stay tuned. So as I mentioned, that I will be looking into what is the difference between security event and security incident. So basically, security event is just an observable, occurrence in a system or in a network. It is harmless. An example could be a user login. It could be a firewall update. But for security incidents, is actually when you detect like a security breach or like a security threat. It is harmful actually. So it could be something like malware detected and all of those. Now, why incident response? Incident response is a structured process by which we detect, respond, recover, and learn some lesson from an incident, from a security incident. This is the structured process that we put in place that helps us to detect, to monitor, and to recover from some of these security incidents. So basically, there are different stages of incident response, and I'll be briefly talking about these stages. And after talking about these stages, we'll dive deeper into 2 parts of these stages just to help you understand properly. So we have about 6 stages of incident response. We have preparation, we have identification, we have containment, eradication, we have recovery, and lesson learned or post-incident lessons or something like that. Some people call it post-incident, lesson learned, or they just call it lesson learned. So I'll be going into brief details about each of these stages. And afterwards, we'll be diving into 2 parts of the stages, which is preparation and identification. Now, for preparation, what happens with preparation? Preparation is when you're getting ready that an incident might occur. In this stage, the incident has not occurred yet. You're just getting ready that an incident might happen. And this is the stage where you set up the tools, you set up the processes, you train the team that is supposed to respond to the incident, you train them. It is in this stage that you create something called incident response plan and playbooks. So in this plan, you get to define the roles and responsibility. In the playbook, you get to define, what happens when. If it is a yes, then it goes to this team. If it is a no, then you close the ticket. That kind of thing. That's what we call playbook. Now, in this preparation stage is when you get to define all of those. And also, it is in this stage that you train your staff on phishing, simulated phishing. Not the real fish, but simulated phishing that could occur in the organization. It is in this stage that you also teach your employees about password hygiene. What does it mean to have a strong password? How that you shouldn't use your first name 123 or use your organization name 123 to create a password. And it's also in this stage that you get to set up your login and monitoring tools, like your SEM tools, where you get to install your antivirus, to monitor and be sure that everything is in sync. It is in the preparation stage. Now, in the stage of identification, what does identification mean? Identification just means that you detect and then you confirm that it's really a security incident. Now, sometimes you detect and eventually find out it's a false positive. Then you close the ticket. But in the case where you detect and confirm that it's actually a security incident, this is where identification comes in, where you're monitoring the system and the network, you're analyzing the logs, and you are deciding if it's really an incident. And in this case, maybe the SEM to actually detect that there is an attempt to log into your server from a foreign country, a country where none of your employees reside. They will analyze the log, try to look into it, and identify whether it is actually a security incident. If it's not a security incident, it could mean that maybe one of your employees actually traveled to a new location and decide to log in into your system from that new location that none of your employees actually reside, and then its ticket will be closed. But where it is determined that nobody is in that location, then they will start to analyze the log. What is the person trying to do? Is the person already in the system? Can we declare and press the button that we actually have a serious security incident? Now, for the part of containment is stopping the attack from spreading. So let's say, for example, you've already seen that there's an attacker in the system. Maybe they've attacked maybe one endpoint or two endpoints. I imagine that I've explained at the beginning of the channel what endpoints mean. It could be your phone, your mobile device, it could be your tab, it could be your laptop, and all of those examples. So let's say it has actually gotten into one of the endpoints, say the laptop of that particular employee, for example, if it's really a security incident. Then containment is stopping it from spreading it to other employee. Containment is isolating it, disabling the account, blocking malicious IP. If it has to do with IP, blocking the IP to be sure that it's not going to spread around to other endpoints or other system in the organization. Now, eradication is removing the root cause. An example of eradication could mean that you are patching a vulnerability. Maybe there is a vulnerability associated with a server or with a system in the organization, and an attacker is able to penetrate into those systems because of the vulnerability. Now, eradication would mean that you're patching that vulnerability. You are deleting the malicious file. Let's say there is a file that is being dumped in your system. You're deleting it. This is the stage of eradication. Now, recovery means that you're bringing the system back safely online. You're bringing up the system back safely. If, for example, it's a user credential that has been, that actually got into the hand of an attacker, and an attacker is using that credential to get into the system or move around the system. Now, bringing it back safely, let's say you have isolated it, by the time you are trying to contain it and you're eradicating the root cause. Now, recovery will mean that bringing that user account back online, back active, but safely. And it's also in recovery that you get to monitor so that there is no reinfection. You reconnect the endpoint or the system to the network, you monitor for sign of reinfection. It happens in recovery, and the system will be ready for normal operation. And then for lesson learned, like I previously mentioned, lesson learned is reviewing what has happened so that you can improve for next time. You hold meetings among the teams that have responded to this incident, ways to improve. You even update your incident response plan or playbook. You can update it from lesson learned. Now, if I would explain this in simple terms, preparation will mean that you're locking your doors, you're installing cameras, you're teaching your family how to be safe online. Identification could mean that you hear that, the alarm went off in the house, or you see a broken window. Now, containment will be locking all other doors that does not have this broken window and calling the police. Now, eradication would mean that you remove the burglar, you fix the broken window. Recovery would mean that you clean up the house and you live in your house as if the incident never occurred. You live peacefully back in your house. And lesson learned will mean that you could install better locks and upgrade your alarm system. I hope this explains it. So we'll be diving deeper into preparation and identification for this week. So because of time constraint, we will not be looking into the identification stage. So we will just be talking about the preparation stage of incident response, like I mentioned. Now, initially I told you that the preparation is the stage where the incident had not happened. So this is the part where you get the people ready, the processes, the technology in place to be able to respond quickly and effectively if an incident happens. So this is like building emergency response in case a fire breaks out. Sometimes fire doesn't break out, but you are sure that when they hear the alarm at the fire station, they know that the fire is happening somewhere. They are ready, they are prepared, the team is geared up in order to move into action. Now, I'll be explaining key components when it comes to preparation stage. Now, the first thing I'll talk about is the incident response plan. I initially mentioned it. So this is like a formal document that is being prepared. In this document, they would analyze what an incident is. And in the beginning, I specifically mentioned that there is a security event, there is a security incident. An event is just an occurrence, harmless occurrence. An incident is when there is a security breach or a threat. So now in this document called incident response plan, there is something called, what incident is, what actually translates to incident for, that company or that organization or that bank or whatever it is. It is defined. Who is responsible is also defined in this kind of document. Remember, we're talking about incident response plan. The document itself, it's a document. Who is responsible at different stages? Who does what? At the identification stage, who is working on it? Which team are coming together to, identify or detect the incidents or whatever has occurred. Roles and responsibility are stated, and also what step to take during this security incident. What are the steps you need to take? What are the contacts? Also the legal step, because when there is a security incident, you also need to work together with your legal team. You need to work together sometimes with your media in order to, with your PR rather, I think, in order to know what to tell the media about the incident. Because when an incident happens, you can't just go about, when you're asked by somebody on the road or even a colleague, sometimes they try to confine the information as much as possible. You can't just say, oh, we have a security incident somewhere. You need to make sure the communication is through, the right channel, or the communication to the public about the security incident, because sometimes when a security incident happens, they want you to communicate to the public, they want you to communicate to the vendors or your clients to be able to tell them. So in this case, you have to state what step to take, when to involve the PR team or whatever it is. So say, for example, in a bank document, there is a 10-step that needs to happen if they have a ransomware situation, like who calls legal, who handles backup, how are customers informed. Say, for example, a bank actually have ransomware issue, or maybe, an attack that exfiltrates some of the customer data. How do you communicate it with the customer? All of these details stay in the incident response plan. Now, after the incident response plan, like I said, the roles and responsibilities are defined. Who leads the incident response team? Who would communicate with the stakeholder? Now, in an organization, you have people who are in the C-level, with the media, public. Who communicates with them? Who communicates with the stakeholder? Who collects the evidence? There are different roles when it comes to incident response. We have the incident responders, the SOC team. We have the forensic analyst, sometimes, analyzing the evidence. We have the network admin, who is looking into what is happening in the network. We have the incident commander, who is commanding the other team. We have the legal team. We have the public relations team that work together. And this is the roles and responsibility that are being defined in the preparation stage. Don't forget, we are still in the preparation stage. Now, there's also a communication plan in this preparation stage. We have communication plan where we notify the management. Sometimes we have to notify the regulators. Let's say, for example, you have a breach that is related to GDPR. You have to inform the regulators around GDPR to let them know that, customer data or employee data has been exfiltrated. Sometimes you need to inform the customer. So you have to plan the communication around this, which also happen in the preparation stage. So there's always a communication template, the one that goes outside or the one that stays inside. It has to be in place in the preparation stage. Also, training and awareness happens in preparation stage, like I mentioned previously. So this is the stage where you teach employees how to report phishing, how to report malicious activity, how to report even insider threats when they see it. Not to think that, oh, this person is my colleague, maybe they don't mean any harm. You should report. There should be a place in the organization where you can report if you see something malicious, or if you see something suspicious, or if you see somebody copying company's data and they are behaving strangely. You should also train employees to understand that cybersecurity matter. And this is the stage. It is in the preparation stage that you actually teach them all of this. You do like simulated phishing, sometimes by monthly, sometimes once in 3 months per quarter in the organization, just to test that the employees are actually ready, in case an incident occur. And it's also in this case, in this stage, that you conduct the tabletop exercise. So training your employee in the preparation stage entails all of that. Also, it is in this preparation stage that you also set up, tools like EDR is endpoint detection and response, that is being, put on every endpoint in order to detect if there is any malicious activity. SEM tool. SEM is security security incidents and event management. So SEM2 is like a tool that takes data from maybe the firewalls and other places, CDR, pull them together in a central place where you can see the information together. Maybe you can set an alert to alert you if there is something that is out of the baseline that you have defined. It is also at this point that you set up a firewall. You have a centralized login. You set up the tool that will detect if an incident is happening. An example of a SEM tool will be Splunk. For those who are familiar with Splunk, endpoint detection will be, Sentinel-1. Sometimes you have also backup solution in this situation. Now, there's also a part in the preparation that has to do with policies and procedure. Now, there's always rule for what happens with password security, what happens with patch management, remote access, data classification and handling. It also have to happen in preparation, not after the incident occurs. Don't forget, preparation stage is before the incident. So there's also a part of third-party readiness. Now, you need to also review in this preparation stage what the vendor's contract entails. Do they even have incident response procedure too in their own company, just in case, let's say you have a third party is handling your data somehow. So if an incident happened and somebody exfiltrates your own company data from their own system, do they have incident response procedure? You need to review this in their contract to be sure that they are also ready in case of an incident. Now, your legal and compliance also have to be prepared. In the case of security incident, they need to know the legal obligations. What does GDPR say about, employees' data, customer data, vendor data? If there's a breach, what are the notification steps? How do we notify the regulators? How do we tell them? For some law, for something like GDPR, you need to notify the regulators within 72 hours. And for the new one that we have, this NIS2, you actually need to notify them within 24 hours of detection of security incident. All of this goes into the preparation part of security incident. So basically, the preparation is a lot, and that's why I took my time to explain each of them so that you can know what entails. Sometimes the question might come that they'll mention something and say, okay, at what stage of incident response do we have, the tabletop exercises? That it's the preparation stage. Or at what stage of, and the incident response do we set up things like SEM tools, like antivirus, like EDR tools? It's also the preparation stage before the incident occurs. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you. See you next time.